gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's January the 5th, 2022. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com. You can tell my voice is really shot. Joined this morning by Stephen Wagner as we discuss the news of the day, presented as always by LifeWallet, where the time is now to take charge of your personal health. And man, we at CaneSport have got to take charge of our personal health, Stephen. I woke up this morning. I don't know what's going on, but it's not good. Azubi has been on his deathbed for days. Matt is missing in action. God knows where he is this morning, probably on some stone crab boat or something, blowing off the show. So it's left to you and myself, with you doing the greater majority of the talking. But before we get to that point, I did want to acknowledge Miami basketball's 6-point loss last night against Georgia Tech. And just an absolutely horrible performance. But in some ways, I know you didn't get to see it. You're at the All-American Bowl out there in San Antonio. So I've got to carry this little segment. But in some ways, it's probably not a surprise. They've had a lot of success. They've gotten ranked. And look, I mean, they're kids, and they start to believe their press clippings and their accolades. And they are on the road in the ACC. And I don't care who you're playing. I don't care if it's the first place team, the last place team, a team in the middle. When you go on the road in the ACC, you are going to be in for a tussle. And that is what Miami quickly found itself in last night. Isaiah Wong could not make a shot. I mean, just as bad a game as you'll see Isaiah Wong play, he didn't really have any zip. He looked, just looked very off, very out of sync, maybe even a little tired. Like he just didn't have his usual spark. Norchad Omier, to me, and he's one of the keys to this team. There's no doubt about it. But this is the second time now in the last couple of weeks that he has gotten himself in ridiculous foul trouble early in the game that has totally impacted the entire game. And so you put all this together last night, untimely missed free throws. They were running uphill for most of this game. They had a 4-point lead late, had a chance to extend it, missed a few free throws. Georgia Tech caught them. And now in the last 2 minutes, you are at the mercy of the breaks and the bounces of the ball. None of them went Miami's way. They lost. So if it serves as a wake-up call for this team and they use it as a springboard to not having similar letdowns as the season goes on, then it will be a positive thing. If it exposes them as a team that's vulnerable and helps teams figure out how to beat them, then obviously it's a bad thing. But Juan can't have an off night. Norchad Omier cannot just lose his mind and pick up dumb foul after dumb foul. They need him on the floor. There's no doubt about it. So I wanted to start out, Stephen, by just acknowledging what went on last night in Atlanta. And now I'm going to shift gears because I'm running out of steam here, as you can tell, and talk a little bit about what's going on in San Antonio. And we talked a little bit about it yesterday, and obviously it's a showcase for the Miami guys. Ray Joseph, Samson Ebukam, for starters, and those are two of the guys that you write about this morning, as well as taking a look at everything going on out there in San Antonio. I'm going to start with Samson. One of our posters on the CaneSport.com message boards had a post last night. Stephen Wagner, what are you watching? All I'm hearing out of San Antonio is how great Samson Ebukam is doing, and you are critiquing him honestly and with a non-partial lens. No, he didn't say that, but I know that's what you are doing, and you're trying to present the complete picture. It's very easy to say if a kid has 25 reps and does great on 17 of them, that he's dominating every rep, but that would be ignoring the 7 or 8 where maybe he didn't do as well or struggle. So start with Samson. Talk a little bit about what you are seeing in San Antonio from him this week, and as it pertains to your story that's on the website this morning.
Well, I'm gonna pull out my inner Matt Shodell here and do my best to get a 13-minute rant in. But Samson has at times been exactly the player that everyone has thought he was going to be: big, physical, fast, elite footwork. Really knows how to handle his own against defenders of his size, his stature, all of that. But he has at times had moments where he's struggled a little bit, and it's kind of looked like, oh man, this may actually be the guy who we initially thought might need a little period to adjust to a much more intense level of physicality from the substantially lower level that he was playing against at Thayer Academy. He's not an IMG product. He was playing high school football in Massachusetts, and Massachusetts is not a Florida or a California or a Texas or even a Louisiana, that matter. It's just a different level of football entirely. And you look at the size of the kids that he was going up against, the talent level of the kids that he was going up against. And the first thing that kind of jumps out at you is, man, not only is Samson bigger than all of these kids, but he's faster and he's stronger too. And whenever you're bigger, faster, and stronger than everybody else, a lot of the times you can kind of get away with a lot of little shortcuts. Now, the good news is that I really do think he's going to be okay. He is very technically sound. Me and him had a chance to chat about it yesterday, where he talked about how even though he's not fully, totally adjusted yet to that more intense level of physicality, and he is going through that adjustment period right now, that he's leaning more on his technique because he's seeing guys that are way faster, way stronger, way more physical than he's seen before. And at moments, he's struggled a little bit with that physicality. And I want to put emphasis on at moments. He has also, for the most part, looked pretty good. And that's mostly what I've talked about to this point. Is this is a kid who looks, for the most part, pretty good. And there have been moments where he's looked absolutely dominant. There's been moments where you're like, okay, yeah, I can see why this kid's a 5-star. And there's been moments where you kind of go, oh, he got beat on that one. He did hold his own against a lot of the pass rushers that he went up against. But there also were a handful of times during these one-on-one reps where he just got absolutely beat. There was a moment during their inside zone running periods during their joint practice when the East team went up against the West team, and he ended up going up against 5-star linebacker Anthony Hill, who I believe is the number 1 linebacker in the 2023 class. And Hill, coming from one of the Dallas area high schools that, it's kind of a similar market to, say a Los Angeles or a Miami, he whipped around him and he beat him. And you just saw Samson completely miss on this guy. So I keep coming back to, he's a really talented kid and he is pretty technically sound. I was shocked to see just how technically sound he was for his size. That was really the first thing that really popped out at me. And I talked about it a little bit yesterday, was as soon as I saw this kid, it kind of astonished me just how good his footwork is. For a guy of his size and magnitude, and previously only having seen him on tape, to actually see him in person and see him go to work in person and be able to be able to match his size with that level of speed, that level of footwork, and such advanced technique for a guy his age, I thought, man, this is a kid who's really good. He's really special. But I don't think it's a criticism to say that a soon-to-be true freshman offensive lineman may need an offseason to adjust to a substantially more intense level of physicality. I don't think that's a harsh criticism at all. In fact, I feel like it's much more along the lines of being realistic, given how incredibly few offensive linemen there are in the country who you can plug in immediately on a Power 5 offensive line and have them be a day one starter right away. And I think Samson is one of those guys. That's how good I think he is. But that being said, I also said this in my story. I think he would benefit from being able to, or I think he will benefit from being able to have the spring to really adjust, be able to go through spring practices, go through the spring game, and then have those summer workouts. I think that's going to be very pivotal in making sure that he is ready to be the starting offensive tackle for the season opener come September. Turning to Ray Joseph a little bit, he just really built on the kid that we saw the first day of practice. He was everything that we expected him to be, and then a little bit more. The only very, very small, slight criticism that I even have, and I wouldn't even call this a criticism so much as an observation, is the only time that I've noticed he can really be stopped in any way, shape, or form is whenever he gets, really aggressively pressed by a big physical defender at the line of scrimmage. And even then, I think every single rep that I've seen him take, he's been able to recover very well, and he's been ultimately able to gain the separation that you want to see from him. But any linebacker that's matched up with him, any off-the-ball safety that's matched up with him, I mean, good luck. What really impresses me about him is not just that he's fast, but that he knows how to use his speed. He knows when to turn the jets on. He knows when to turn the jets off. He knows how to find the creases and the seams. He knows how to sink in zone coverages. Just a really, really, to me, just a really impressive football IQ in the sense that he understands that he's only 5'9". The roster has him listed as 5'9". The On3 database has him listed as 5'8". I'm 5'11", and whenever I'm standing next to him, I've got a little bit of height on him. So he's definitely not a big guy, but he told me that it really is kind of that heart over height approach. He really does believe that heart is going to beat out height, and that he understands how to maximize his skill set for the absolute best of his ability. He knows he's not going to be a 50-50 jump ball corner fade type of dude.
No.
He fully accepts that. And so he says, you know what I'm going to focus on? I'm going to focus on tearing up zone coverages, and I'm going to focus on making teams pay for putting linebackers and safeties on me. If you're going to cover me, you're going to have to pass me through multiple zone defenders. And you know what that's going to do? That's going to get other players open too. Ray Joseph is a guy that I really like a lot. He's looked exactly like the player we thought he was going to be these first 2 days of practice. He really does look like a kid who probably is going to be the best receiver on campus whenever he steps on campus on January 15th with the other early enrollees.
You done?
Oh, my bad. I forgot. I'm supposed to be Matt Shodell. I've got 10 more minutes left on this rant.
All right. All right. Let me see if I can say a few things here, because I liked what you were talking about. All right. On Samson, why would anybody think that he's going to be totally polished just because he's a 5-star, big, 300+ pound offensive tackle, that he is going to come to college polished and ready to play college football from the second that he steps on campus? Like, that is not reality. And he doesn't have to be ready the second he steps on campus. He has to be ready in September. Okay. So the fact that he is in San Antonio now and getting this opportunity to go against guys that are better than what he faced in high school is an absolute positive, and should certainly not be taken as a negative or something that's offensive, even by the most orange and green pom-pom waving message board poster on our website. Yes, I am talking about you, Third Kane, who came at my man Stephen Wagner yesterday on the message board because you thought he wasn't positive enough about Samson Okunlola. Well, now you've heard it from his own mouth, and you can see that he is plenty positive about Samson. There is plenty of reason to be positive about Samson. But Samson, and he'd be the first to admit it, based on Stephen's story that's on the website today, you will see, is a work in progress in terms of adjusting to a higher degree of difficulty that he is finding now in these all-star camps and is going to find on the Miami practice field when he's got to go against Jafari Harvey, Nigel E. Kelly, Cyrus Moss, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's all good. Nothing to worry about with Samson. Now, I've gotten a million phone calls this week, and I'm not even in San Antonio, about Ray Joseph. And people are just raving about what he is doing out there in San Antonio. Like Steven said, probably showing up even better than maybe we even knew that he was going to be. I've said from day one that I think he's going to be the best receiver on the team the minute he steps on campus. But he might even be better than that, the way he's showing out in San Antonio. We won't find out until spring practice. But that is an absolute huge positive for Miami. Now, Steven, I have a negative I want to ask you about. We haven't brought him up yet. That is Malik Bryant, the linebacker. Okay. When I first saw Malik Bryant for the very first time, it was at a camp, not too dissimilar to where he is this week. And he was standing on the sidelines doing nothing, not competing, had some reason why he was not competing, and did not participate in that camp. Now I hear that he's in San Antonio. He took the trip there. He was chosen to be in the All-American game, took the trip to San Antonio, and he's standing on the sideline again, not competing, not participating. That concerns me. Okay. I mean, I've seen this before. One guy that comes to mind actually was Don Chaney, who opted out of a similar situation like this. And then they dropped him in the rankings from 30 to like 230 because he didn't compete. He didn't, he claimed he was claiming the shoulder injury and didn't even participate at all in these camp workouts. But there have been others, and I don't know, maybe I'm a worrywart, but I just find that a little concerning that somebody isn't dying to be out there. And we saw it a little bit with Cormani McClain in Orlando, by the way, when he opted out of practice one day. He ended up playing in the game. But I don't like when kids that are supposed to be really good players get ready to come to college level and be counted on to be very good players, seemingly like shy away from competition. I mean, he said it wasn't injury related. He said he was playing it safe, right, Steven? Like, what's the deal with Malik Bryant there in San Antonio?
Concerning isn't exactly the word that I think I would use. I think it's more along the lines of peculiar, in that I'm really, really curious about this. I did have a chance to ask Malik, if there was something wrong with him, why he was choosing to sit out. And, what he literally told me was better safe than sorry, in that he's just sitting out as a precaution. He just doesn't want any risk, or he doesn't want to take any risk or possibly end up being injured in practice, which I 100% understand. I
agree, but why go?
We saw, and this is where, I kind of do scratch my head a little bit, because, we saw guys like Francis Mauigoa, he opted out of the Under Armour game because he just said, I'm sorry?
He didn't show up.
Yeah. He just chose not to show up. I'm not going to risk injury. I've already got everything that I need. I really don't gain anything from playing in this game. That's not a really huge concern to me. What I did find curious, though, was the fact that he was here on Monday and he was in pads on Monday. And the work that the linebackers have done so far in practice has not really been hyper physical. Their one-on-one drills is really just kind of a lot of, running around more than anything. Or I'm sorry, their individual drills are just a lot of running around more than anything. Occasionally, a few of them will get one-on-one edge rushing opportunities against the offensive line. And for the most part, until they get to the inside run period, and they're actually allowed to kind of let loose on the offensive line a little bit, the most that these guys end up doing is just kind of being, basically stand-in dummies for the offensive line to literally walk through. So it wasn't really anything hyper physical. And we saw Malik practice a little bit yesterday. And then, it kind of seemed like, everyone just kind of chilled out. You want to keep in mind that the intensity at this thing is not through the roof. I mean, this is an all-star showcase where these kids, almost all of them have signed. I'd say probably 90% of them have signed. And there's a few who have already signed and they're just planning on announcing it at this game. I did find it very peculiar that he chose to go through practice on Monday, a very, kind of a light-ish practice on Monday. Then, he goes through a couple reps and then he just kind of seems to shut down a little bit. And we see him in his jersey on the bench as the only kid in a jersey who was on the bench and not participating in some way. I found it kind of interesting that he didn't want to go over and hang out with the linebackers. He didn't want to follow the linebackers around. He, didn't really, have a tremendous amount of interest in, like a lot of their different practice periods or anything like that. And he just kind of hung out on the bench and just kind of played with his phone a little bit and listened to music. It really was kind of a head scratcher to me because for the guys who have chosen to opt out, they just straight up haven't shown up. And Jaden Wayne, who told me that he wasn't going to be playing in the All-American game because he actually had some injury concerns. He's pretty upset by it because this is something that he was really looking forward to. He's not going to be able to play in the game, but he said he was going to come down on Saturday and he was actually going to be in attendance to kind of support everyone. And it sounds to me kind of like he kind of hopes that he can get this experience too. But yeah, in Malik Bryant's case, if this is something that, you're kind of concerned that, you may get injured in this, then I'm not certain why you wouldn't just choose to opt out entirely.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it. If you're going to go compete, we have a Matt Shodell sighting, okay, to talk about. But first, we must hear from our friends at Life Wallet.
Jordan, are you feeling all right?
Hey, you sure you good?
Hey man, how you feeling?
I feel really dizzy.
Do you have Life Wallet?
I do have Life Wallet.
Program activated.
Hey, Jordan, you all right?
Actually, I'm great because I have my Life Wallet.
All right, I better not have to call an ambulance for you like that.
Man, I'll tell you, I feel close. I'll tell you, they could have used their Life Wallet last night. I'll tell you that in Atlanta. Wow. Anyway, before we go any further, we do have a Matt Showdell sighting. You recall I said at the beginning of the show, he did not show up this morning for our taping. Okay, and so I immediately made some phone calls. I said, would somebody please go find Matt and tell him that we are taping Good Morning CaneSport? Well, I just received a text that Matt is not going to be available for today's show, but I did get some footage. This is Matt. Okay, he's out on a boat as the sun's rising out in Biscayne Bay, messing around with crabs. So, for the rest of today, I'm going to be on a mission to try to get him.
Go back and regenerate your claws, my friend.
Get him to take his job more seriously because we can't have him crabbing when we're supposed to be taping. But anyway, so those of you that are members of the Matt fan club that were just concerned about his lack of presence on today's show, there you go. There's the footage to show you that he is alive and well and in his element with the crabs out on the bay. All right. In the meantime, I'm here powering through with Steven. Voice is coming back here for a moment. So we're going to talk about a couple other things that are on the website today, in addition to Steven's great coverage from San Antonio. We have our CaneSport 30 for 30 feature today, ranking the top 30 Canes with 30 or more reps of experience. Today, we talk about number 29, Jacurri Brown. And Steven, you were not here for the whole season this past year, but you did get to see a little bit of Jacurri in a few games. And, listen, it was interesting because it was a very polarizing subject, but Jacurri had struggled through a lot of spring and fall practices, and there were some questions as to whether he was going to be able to contribute as a true freshman. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to go back there and upset anybody, but you got to give him credit for one thing. He played his heart out when he got to play. He tried his best. He's just not there yet as a major college passer. So there were times where he struggled a little bit. And I think it's safe to say that can't be counted on to be a serious contender to be the starter in 2023. So we take a look at Jacurri and where he's at, but we do still rank him in the top 30 on the team. And I think when you look at starting quarterbacks, you got to obviously take a look at Tyler Van Dyke, assuming he does stick with his plans to come back. Now, I say that because this NIL deal out there is never a done deal until it's a done deal. And even though Tyler might be planning on coming back, he's one phone call away from not coming back too. That's the way I feel about it. And I don't think you can take anything for granted, even after spring practice. So that's going to be one that Miami's going to have to keep sweating out. So the issue for the football program becomes, what happens if Tyler Van Dyke does go out and accept of what he feels is a better NIL situation somewhere else? Well, now you got Jacurri and you got Jake Garcia again, and Jake had his own struggles. So I think the debate that is there, and it's certainly not something that we have to solve this morning. And Stephen, I'm not sure that, it would be fair to ask you to have this debate with me because you came late in the season this past year. But I think the debate is, should Miami be looking for another quarterback? And does it need to find another quarterback to bring into the fray here, preferably before spring practice? And obviously we have no idea what Mario Cristobal and the staff are thinking along those lines right now. But I do think it's a legit question and a legit issue because of just the general uncertainty at the position from Tyler on down. I mean, and even Tyler Van Dyke that's coming back, that's a great thing, obviously, but he struggled himself early last year. So I think it's a little bit more of an unstable situation than maybe we really think about or want to let ourselves believe. But I do think it just at least is worth watching here in the coming weeks as we move ahead. Does Miami think it needs another quarterback in the portal? Other things on the website today, Miami Athletics confirmed what we reported a few weeks ago, and that's its plans to build the new football operations center. Obviously a spectacular project and one that everyone's very excited about. And if you missed our coverage a few weeks ago, I'm not going to tell you there's a lot. If you saw it, there's not a lot new in our story about the new complex today, but you can read up on that and catch up on what are the plans for the new Miami Football Operations Center, which looks like it will rival any in the country. And also, for those of you that are tracking the transfer portal, just to note that we are continuing to update our transfer portal tracker every single day. So make sure you check that out on a daily basis. We're adding names, we're removing names of players that Miami is looking at in the portal. And then obviously, if anybody leaves the current team, we would add them to the list there as well. So that's going to do it for today for Good Morning CaneSport. We made it 30 minutes, Stephen. Thank you so much for your help. As you can tell, my voice is shot. We thank you so much for starting out your day with us. It means a lot to us. Matt Shodell Fan Club, sorry that you didn't get your fix today. But if you like this show, typically hit your subscribe button, hit your like button. It helps us with the algorithms at YouTube. And if you're not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, hurry on over and take advantage of our special, which carries you through the start of the next football season. I believe right now it is set at $25. So for Stephen Wagner, I'm Gary Ferman. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody.